Okay then.
Rob is out of town, or
No.
he's flying back in. He's flying back in. He's going to his daughter's deal tonight, if he can make it. So,
Mike Chestwood. That's loud. That's really loud.
thank you, man.
I got close just to see what it was going to do.
Yeah, we switched you down one.
Yeah, I've got 8 places here where you can
That's
sit.
loud.
This is us, so you just make a spot.
Okay, what's I about to do?
Pick you out one.
Miss Alice, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Hey, hey, how are you doing?
Good, how are you? Yes, okay, circle work, I'm doing good. Nice to meet you, April.
Yeah. Phone been ringing.
Yeah.
I've heard that
Hey,
you stayed with us, because I was hoping that would happen.
Okay, yes. Here.
Change.
Right.
get everybody sit down here just a minute. Who are we missing? We got Darryl, I guess, we got everybody tonight. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, we're all here. He's funny.
Oh, that's great.
All right, we're all here. We ready to record, Mrs. Secretary.
Put this down.
All right, want to call the meeting to order. So let's rise for the invocation. Our gracious Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this day. Thank you for many blessings you continue to give us, Father. Just guard, guide, and protect us on this day and the days forward. For this, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge, we don't have the flag out, so we'll pretend there's one over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. I guess we're all here, so we do have a quorum present. All 7 members are present. And I want to introduce the new council members. Lady on the left is April Taylor Johnson.
Hey.
Welcome.
The gentleman in the middle is Will Thomas.
Hello. His
And the
name's
gentleman on the right is, just a minute, it'll come to me. Holly Shaddy. I want to welcome y'all to the meeting, and these meetings are always open. So anytime y'all want to come to a Jedco meeting, you're welcome to do it. All right. First thing on the agenda is the consent agenda. And anybody need to take a little extra time to look at the financial reports and the minutes from the previous meeting? Not anything there particularly.
Do you want to give, or do you have it scheduled later for an update on the accounts? Yeah, you do down below. The
Yeah.
discussions, right?
Yeah. All right, where's the?
You'll notice in this one, under the Vera Bank, is now we have 2 credits of interest, one current for the month, and the other one, Bubba had caught that we hadn't been paid the interest since we moved the money over there. And so the 117 is the catch-up. And the 84 is the current month.
Yeah, they apologized for not crediting us with interest, and so they gave it back to us for the time that we've had it invested up at Vera Bank. As we see that the First National Bank downtown We still have $186,176.67 there. As soon as we we haven't got the final approval yet from, for our tax pool money yet, have we?
No, we had the proper signatures and the documents, and we found out there's a couple more that we have a tax pool account, but to move up to a tax pool prime and get the better interest was a whole new application process. So you guys all signed all that, we got all that sent in, and I got a phone call last week saying they received everything, they have it, it has to go before their board, and then they'll let us know when we're approved then for the prime account, which means that our existing funds can move up and we can add additional funds to it.
Okay, and because it has to be approved by the comptroller's office, isn't that correct as
Correct,
well?
yeah.
So that should just be a matter of a few more days, hopefully. So do I hear a motion to accept the financial reports and the, anybody looked at the minutes? We've already checked the minutes.
I checked.
All right, do I hear a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
I moved to accept the
All right.
consent agenda.
Motion by Raymond, second by David. Any other questions? All in favor? Aye. All right, 7-0. All right, I'm going to move up the discussion items because we have the representative from the SPI, our engineering firm, that is going to give us an update on the professional services, structural engineer situation for the train trestle out here, about trying to make it a pedestrian path. So
6D, okay.
that would be 6D, yes. All right, Robert, take it away.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and esteemed new honorable council members. My name is Robert Hagley. I'm from Schaumburg and Polk Consulting Engineers. You may be used to seeing Jeremy Buchter up here, some of you, the vice president of our company, but I'm the one that does more of the grant applications and things like that. I had a good discussion and conversation with a couple of former mayors here, Mayor Haggart and Mayor Turner, talking about the train trestle out here, the Jefferson Howe train trestle, in order to potentially convert that into a walking trail, for which there is a Texas Parks and Wildlife grant available that comes around every year called the Recreational Trails Grant. And what the Recreational Trails Grant does is it's an 80-20 grant, 80-20 match grant. In other words, the state would provide 80% of the funding and the local sponsor would provide 20%. It has a maximum grant ceiling of $300,000. So you can do a $375,000 project. If you took $375,000 and 80% of that would be 300 and 20% would be 75 for the match. So that, for the project that we're looking at, that's probably not going to be enough money to do the entire conception that we have in our minds, but it's $300,000 worth of money from the state that would certainly go a long way in assisting on that project. I talked to the state of Texas, Texas Parks and Wildlife, particularly about this project, and sent them a map and some photographs. We do quite a few of these applications, and we work really closely with those guys down there in Austin and gals down there in Austin. And so I have a relationship with them where I can ask them, hey, is this worth it or is this not worth it? So, because it's a competitive grant. Grants will come in from all over the state for recreational trails of all shapes and sizes. So I sent this down there and asked one of my buddies down there who's on the trails committee, is this look appreciable or not? And his exact words, and I wrote it down in quotations, this is a very compelling site. He saw the historical value of the site. He saw what we were looking to do for some connectivity from the opposite side of the trestle to the near side of the trestle where it connects to all the rest of the trail system. He saw the map that I sent him had some, I think 7 historical sites labeled on there. And so he was very impressed by that and saw great value in that. So his theory is, yes, send in an application. I believe it's very compelling. So the application deadline for this grant is February 1st of every year. So we're now in early May. We have a long time to do it, but it'll come around before you know it. There are some concerns and considerations about the structural elements of the trestle. And I talked to Chris down in Austin, and his suggestion / recommendation was to go ahead and get a structural assessment of the trestle prior to, and send in that structural assessment with the application for a couple of reasons. One, it would go a long way to show that there genuinely was interest in skin in the game from the community, and two, in that it would make the decisions of the committee a little simpler to know that this thing was structurally sound or what it needed to become structurally sound. He told me that whatever cost was upfront for the structural assessment would not be covered by the grant because it would be outside of the local agreement with Parks and Wildlife. But if there were elements that needed to be addressed as a result of the structural assessment, that those would be covered by the grant. In other words, if the grant was awarded, any structural elements necessary to bring it into compliance would be covered by the grant. So that's sort of Recreational Trails Grants 101. I'll be happy to answer any questions. The grant goes into, as I said, deadline February 1st every year. Then usually at I believe it's May, practically positive it's May, Texas Commission meeting, they award the grants. So you'd know by May or June. It's going to be late spring, early summer. You would know of the award, and that would be, since we've already passed February 22, that'd be in 23. So I think it's a good opportunity for you guys. It's certainly up to you and the city to make these decisions. We don't do the structure. We don't have a structural engineer in-house. We recommended a structural engineer, and you guys were supposed to have in front of you tonight a proposal from said engineer. That didn't happen. It's actually been sent. It was sent at 10 after 5 today and unable to be looked at and opened and read. I think Mayor Haggard will get it when he gets home and distribute it to you guys as appropriate. So, but once that's done and you guys engage a structural engineer, should you decide to do that, we can go forward and begin to collect data and information to put together the application. It's not the hardest application to put together. It's just a lot of information that has to come from different sources and pulled all together onto one form to go in. So, and we do that at Schaumburg and Polk. We'll do that for you. We don't charge you anything to make the application to the state. It's kind of like that lawyer commercial. We don't get paid unless you get paid. We don't charge to do the application and follow it through to its end. But then if you're awarded the grant for the design work and grant processing, then there would be a fee, and that would come from Jeremy, not me. So, unless there's any questions, that's sort of the grants 101, and you should have the structural proposal. That's when you get a chance to look at it.
So this may be to you or Bubba, but how many moving parts are there to coming up with this total price? We've got the structural assessment, we've got yours, the grant writing. Bubba, is it up to the city as to what's going to happen on the other side and what's going to happen here as far as landing, in addition to the structure of the bridge, right?
Well, what I know is this will have to be taken forward by the city. We can fund a structural analysis of the bridge, but am I right about that, Robert?
Yes, sir.
Anything having to do with grants comes through the city. City council will have to, and the mayor will have to take this project on at some point if they're willing to do that.
Right.
And so that's one thing that we'll have to do is find out if the willingness on the city council is there to pursue it once we try to do this. my idea of trying to do this was that to find out the structural integrity of the bridge itself. And that would be probably a determinator whether or not, we could go forward with anything more, or just kind of watch it deteriorate over the years. And, but I thought, well, at least we'll know something, and then the city council will have to take it forward. We are a funding mechanism for the city. And I look at tourism as economic development, just like you would if you bring a business in, so.
Sir, to piggyback on what the mayor said, at the time of design, if you were awarded the project and we began a design process, we'd work very closely with whomever the city or this body selected. I mean, we'd work with if there's a Main Street group or a Parks and Recreation group or anybody that wanted to see, what the walking surface would be, what the landing on the other side would be, parking areas and parking lots for trailheads are an eligible expense for this grant. So we'd sit down with you guys and do a kickoff meeting and decide what do you want to see, and then we could determine what are eligible components of the grant. If you come up with any that might be ineligible, we'd tell you, and then we'd work it that way to try to do it the way you want it.
Okay.
Has anybody got any more questions? This is not an action item because we don't have anything to do action on. So any other questions for Robert?
I think,
Okay.
I understand.
Thank you.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. Well, I thank you for your time and coming up here to talk with us. Because you and I talked earlier, and I didn't know whether it'd do any good to come, but I thought, well, at least it will educate everyone that's here about what the project is and things such as that, so we can at least have some information about it from there.
Yes, sir. And I'm happy to answer
Yeah.
questions.
Is the 300,000 the max that's given by the Parks and Recreation on any project like this?
On any project like this, yes, sir. They have a number of grant programs, but this one caps out at 300,000.
Okay.
And then they have some others that go to 1.5 million, but
Okay.
that's for.
So if it was something that we wanted to do, like we thought about making that also a golf cart bridge as well. And if we went to that impact and we needed to do additional work, there's other areas we could probably get funding besides.
That's a golf cart bridge over the trestle.
Uh-huh.
That's interesting because this grant is broken down into two different categories. One is non-motorized trail and one is motorized trail. Mm-hmm. Now, my question becomes, and it would be a question I would need to clarify with Parks and Wildlife, is a golf cart considered a motorized vehicle? I know, there's some electric and there's some gas powered.
Right.
So, and then to further answer your question, if they say, yes, this is a motorized trail, that's more money and fewer applicants. If it's been in the past where pretty much you could say if you applied for a motorized trail, you were going to get it because there was no competition. So that's an interesting concept. I need to clarify with them whether a golf cart, because when they talk about motorized trails, oftentimes they're talking about four-wheelers, side-by-sides, go-karts, motorcycle mountain bikes.
Yeah.
But golf carts, that's interesting. I'm going to have to check on that.
Yeah. It's something that's been kicked around, so we ought to at least address it, I think, or doing everything.
I can do
else.
that. I can do that tomorrow.
Right.
I'll check with Parks and see what golf cart would look like.
Okay, great.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you all.
All right,
Thank you.
All right, do I hear a motion to table item 6D? So next month or whatever. Anybody want to make a
Well,
motion to
you
table?
said there was no action to be had.
Yes, so,
I don't know if we need a motion. It's just discussion only.
Yeah.
all right, we just do the discussion.
Well,
But
probably.
it's on there as action, so
Yeah.
let's table it.
Let's
make a
take,
motion to
I'll
table.
make a motion to table until we get the actual report in from the other engineering company.
All right, motion by Raymond, do I hear second? Second by Doug. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, 7-0. All right, we go back to line item A, 6A. Potential new date. This is more or less for just discussion. We ended up having to cancel it from the 7th. It was supposed to be from the 7th to the 19th, 17th through 19th, and there was just too many conflicts. So we went ahead and just postponed it, and we're going to try to come up with another date. We have not yet, because Dr. Rotter hadn't sent us anything yet to see when his availability would be. But there was just too many conflicts of things going on with the school and other stuff from
Do you know
the middle of that month.
is it an attempt on the new schedule to do again a 3-day in town, or is it a combination of video?
Well, we've got to talk about that and see what the deal is. So we hadn't done anything on that yet, so I'm waiting to hear something from him to where we can try to get with the group and see who all wants to, what's best for them, where we can try to get the most people there.
That's the Texas A&M thing?
Yeah.
Well, that is the Texas Leadership
Texas
deal. That's
Leadership.
the one where we have about a 3-day deal. That's not the Texas A&M Target Communities, Texas Target Communities.
classes.
That's a separate deal.
Classes and training on how to put together a leadership team.
Right, that was the 17th through the 20th.
It was.
That's not
It
gonna
was
happen.
going to be from the 17th to the 19th of next, in other words, next
Of
week.
this- yeah.
But it didn't work out.
That's
so
not
we
gonna
had to
happen, okay.
cancel. All right. On item 6B, Texas A&M University Capstone Agreement. All right, this is the piece of paper here. Let me see some of the community. I've got some extra, a few of the extra copies for y'all. On the back page, very back page is our lawyer's, W.F. Palmer's opinion, and that hasn't changed much from everybody on the board right now. We tried to get this done for last year, and we ran into some problems trying to get it where everybody was happy with it, and so we just canceled that because we was running out of time. And so anyway, this is the new Capstone Agreement. Dr. Cooper is not in charge of this program anymore. He's been moved up to another job, so we've got different ones that are over this now, although I think he's still looking over their shoulder to see how things are going, but he's not our main contact anymore on this. But anyway, if you want to look at the last page, and we'll kind of go over that, it was and I had permission from Mr. Palmer for us to look at this in public, and it was talking about, and he was talking about the same things that were the problem last year when we tried to do it. And said, under this agreement, Jedco will be spending approximately $41,000 to have Texas A&M students perform research and design or develop a comprehensive plan for the city. The agreement says that such students will investigate Jedco's data and information to engage the public in determining a vision for future goals and objectives. There is no precedent or formula by which such goals or objectives will be created or who will set the goals and objectives. Paragraph 3 contains how do you pronounce that? Exculpatory language for Texas A&M, and is followed by paragraph 4, which also exempts Texas A&M from any liability. Paragraph 4.6, indemnification by Jedco of Texas A&M, which was in the first agreement, which I noted then to be objectionable. Paragraph 6, the general provision should have the venue for any dispute to be subject only to Marion County, which is not the way this document is drafted. As I indicated in our telephone conversation, the quid pro quo is difficult, if not impossible, to justify the monies which would be paid out to Jedco for the unknown benefits which will be received by Jedco from this program. Again, I'm not trying to undermine the program, but this agreement does not assume Jedco any equivalent benefits considering the compensation to be paid to Texas A&M. So, Lynn, would you, you address some of this if you can? And give your opinion?
Let me make a comment.
Well, I'm not going to make a legal opinion.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
just talking
yes,
about a
but-
board opinion. I know you're
Well,
not a
I
lawyer.
think Mr. Palmer has stressed this pretty good. One of the things that I had a consideration on was under paragraph 4.1, which isn't addressed here. 4.1 says the project students will provide sponsor with an oral briefing and a presentation and written report at the end of the semester. And that word "the" bothers me because this covers 3 semesters. And that could be interpreted to mean we get 1 presentation. It could be interpreted to we get 2 or 3. And I would think that the word change ought to be each. From that one word from the semester to each semester, I'm assuming we would get a report each semester, because if I understand this, potentially maybe different students working on this with each semester.
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's up to the board.
No, I think it's a good call, good call.
The venue thing under paragraph 6 that he's talking about, should there be some dispute on this particular contract of some sort of litigation or something else later under paragraph 6.1, it's the end of that sentence that says it contemplates as provided under Texas law. And Texas law would provide for any venue can be appropriate where any portion of a contract is executed, which means that there could be 2 different venues here. It could be a venue in whatever county that is that A&M's in, or it could be Marion County. The suggestion, well, it wasn't a suggestion, I guess, but Mr. Palmer is just pointing out that, it's not specifically in Marion County. I don't know if that's a real concern or not. Probably if some action were on recipient on the sponsor's end that needed to be done, we'd be the first one to file a lawsuit and go to the Marion County. But on the other hand, if Texas A&M had some dispute with us, want to file a lawsuit, they're going to file it there. Both of those venues would be appropriate unless a venue is put in the contract specifically.
Well, we talked, when Mr. Palmer originally reviewed this, I think, matter of fact, you brought up the each and the back then, if I remember right. That's the first one you brought up tonight on 4.1. And I agree that sounds better and changing, but didn't we discuss then, based on his disagreements with certain language, to go ahead and move forward regardless? And now this is a secondary agreement. That was with the A&M project, right? And then now this is, with the group we're supposed to be meeting with.
Leadership.
Leadership.
Yeah.
There was similar language in there that he had issue with, and we decided just go ahead and move forward anyway.
Well, the leadership deal is, we pay for it after we, basically get the work.
No, but we had an
It's
agreement
invoiced.
to
It's
sign.
not-
We had an agreement to sign with them that he had similar issues with the same language, but we
Well-
decided to move forward.
Yeah.
Well, did he?
Well, I
I
think
guess I
there's-
don't remember that all that well. But I thought that, whenever you sit there and you got to pay for something over, what was it? 18 months almost. isn't it?
Remember, we had to have that signed by a certain date
Right.
and into him.
Yeah,
So we either had to push back on what was recommended or go ahead and sign it. We just went in and signed it.
Yeah. That was for a much lesser amount of money.
Yeah, that
and
was
it
for the,
only for the leadership, but
yeah.
I think there is some issues here that needs to be discussed with our attorney prior to our executing this. I don't know what the timetable is or what the date that they've asked us to have this back to them, but I think it's something we certainly want to do. But I'd like to see a little more time given, at least until the next meeting, to actually get this signed. Unless anybody else has some comments, are we on any kind of time constraint that you know?
well, the only thing, I don't know, yes, we are under a time constraint, but I don't know that it's right now.
Yeah.
We've got a little leeway here, I think. It said first payment due July 31st.
Yeah.
So we've got at least that long.
Yeah.
We're going to, got a call with them to find out what, with the two ladies that's kind of over this program now.
Right.
To see what's going to, where we go from here. And, this will be the first time that they've heard these objections.
Yeah.
From our attorney, and maybe they can get, John and I could never get those resolved from last year. So we've got to, we've either got to take our attorney's advice or we got to just say we're going to sign it anyway. And I'm not, if this was for a $5,000 deal or $3,000, that might not be a bad thing. But I tell you what, when you're dealing with this kind of money, we're stewards of the money, and I'd like to have the blessing of our attorney. That's what we got him for.
Well,
before we sign a contract.
I think his objections are probably pretty valid, but also I'd like to see some kind of a recommendation. He objects, but let's have a recommendation. What would solve it? And we don't have that today. We don't have the ability to solve his objections. So I think maybe that could be incorporated into some kind of a meeting with him or a call with him and say, okay, based on your language, your objections to it, what would you actually propose that would be unobjectable to him, that would also satisfy Texas A&M's?
Well, one thing that we never were able to do last year was try to get in touch with their attorney.
Yeah.
And at some point, you may have to just say, Mr. Palmer, you're going to have to get in touch with their attorney and we all work this out.
Yeah.
And would you say that would be probably the thing to do?
Yeah, I was just gonna not really make a suggestion, but just kind of throw out there that would it be appropriate to get this moved quicker would probably be us authorizing our attorney, Mr. Palmer, to get with whomever it is with A&M. Obviously, people that we're dealing with at A&M, they're not going to be a lawyer, so they're going to have somebody else in their legal look at it, and that's just a couple of extra hoops back and forth that takes time and consideration. Just let the two attorneys
Could solve it.
maybe see if
Yeah.
we can come up with some resolution.
And
I don't know that that's the answer. I'm just saying.
well, to piggyback on Lynn's comment, then you would need to know, or let Palmer know also which ones of his concerns you want to make sure he talks to him about and which ones is not a deal breaker.
Yeah, and I think we can come up with that. I guess some of the things that I see that is not going to be something that they're going to give up on is indemnification, because they're going to have that because they're students and there's not anything. So I think under paragraph 4.6, there's no way they're going to let that go. And I think I have no objection to that because of the knowledge of who's going to be doing it, who's going to be actually implementing it. So there could be some areas here I think that we could probably not have a question about, or at least have the ability to accept with his comments. But also, I think it's very, very true that he could make one phone call and all this could go away. So,
Well, I think so. I mean, it's a deal where we can certainly authorize him to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
well, it would be.
Well, 4.6, I can kind of understand why they would state that. Take a look at the last of that paragraph. Is they're holding themselves harmless. But if you look at that, it says, which may arise from the sponsors, that's us, use of the results.
Yeah.
They're giving us results and advice, and then we have to go implement it. And they're just saying, okay, that's what they've done their deal. Whatever we do with that in construction or build is not their problem.
Yeah.
And I don't have an issue with that.
well,
No, I don't
that's
either.
the way I read it too. I don't know. Well, since this was kind of a general item, so are y'all going to, on item B, do you want to authorize me to authorize Mr. Palmer to get with their attorney and negotiate between them? Is that what we can do? What do you think, Lynn?
I think if this board finds some of this language that we want changed, I think we ought to give that clear direction to Palmer and those that we can say we don't really have a problem with, even though he might be saying that just pointing out something to us. I think we ought to give clear direction to our attorney as to which items we would like to see worked on and which ones we're okay with.
Yeah, like the one that Lynn brought up's not in Palmer's concern, so that needs to be added.
Yeah.
But I think the one I just read is not a concern,
No.
if that's the way it was written, so. And then again, 6 just may be,
Lynn, which one were you?
6, Lynn just explained 6, that it's not an issue for,
Which item number did you say, Lynn, that you were?
venue.
Oh,
Four
adding
point one,
that,
wasn't it?
that was 4.1, just changing that next to the last word in there from the semester to each semester. I think that that's
I think it's good.
an important thing because among other
Yeah.
things, that kind of gives a little bit more impetus to this next to the last paragraph where he's saying, I find the quid pro quo is a little difficult to comprehend here. And I think if we're getting 3 reports as opposed to potentially 1,
Yeah.
I think that helps alleviate that situation that he's pointing out there.
I agree. And I think from my understanding, that's what would happen. It would be a quarterly input. So I think that's well within our scope to be able to include that each language instead of the.
As far as the paragraph 6 about the venue, you know, if you really, that only becomes important if the pursuit's filed. You know, if the
Then it gets
contract-
important real quick, doesn't it?
everything okay, that's a non-issue.
Yes.
Well, if there wasn't conflict, you guys wouldn't have a job, would you?
That's it.
Wouldn't need the profession.
You know, I wouldn't see that they'd have an objection to Marion County being named as the venue. They might, but I don't see how they would. It's,
Their attorney could have
he could.
Yeah.
a major deal with that.
Yeah, he could.
Yeah, because you're,
Because it simply meant that if his client, their client, the Texas A&M, for some reason or another wanted to sue the sponsor, they'd have to come to Marion County to do it. On the flip side of that is that if we ever had an issue with them and needed to file a suit,
Jedco.
you know, it's whoever would file first.
Right, that's right.
Because both venues, when it just says that it's appropriate under Texas law, there's 2 immediate venues that could be Marion County or, I wished I knew what
Brian.
county Bryan
Right,
was.
right. It's,
Whatever county.
yeah, it's Bryan County. It's Bryan College Station. That's, what county is that?
Well, and it is what he's brought up twice now is under Texas law.
Google.
It's under Texas law, should it not be okay with us other than trying to delay or,
Texas law allows both those venues.
correct,
Yeah.
rather than, are we really gonna slow this thing down just to make sure that if they ever sue us, it has to be here in Marion County?
Again, I think that's something attorneys could work out without any problem. Just talk about it. I think that'd be an easy, between two attorneys. I would think, maybe not, but.
That might be something that we could instruct our attorney that we would really kind of like, maybe would like to see it in Marion County, but if they throw up too much of a red flag, just back off on it.
Yeah.
Say, okay.
That's right.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know that it's,
Good with that?
I don't know that I have a feeling one way or the other, because as I
Yeah.
said, it's like, it only comes into play unless there's a dispute over this thing, and I just.
Well, I can't imagine what
envision that
results,
it would
you know,
be. Yeah.
how we would
Unless
use
we-
the results.
Unless something happened, we didn't pay the bill.
I think that might be the only case.
They'll run down there right quick.
Yeah.
So do
Take
we
them a
need
check.
motion?
Well, what's, on the,
I probably would move that we table this to have a discussion with our attorney and let him have a discussion with their attorney, and hopefully before the next meeting, have this ironed out so we can sign this at the June meeting.
well, I can always call another one for this, we need to.
If we need to. If we need a quick one, we can do it. So
All right, so so I hear a motion to table item 6B, the Capstone Agreement pending but in the meantime, giving me authorization to authorize our attorney to get with theirs to.
yes.
I'll make said motion.
Okay.
All right, I have a motion.
David made that.
Motion by Raymond, second by David.
Discussion.
Discussion, absolutely.
I think that just slows this process down and throws a real kink in things unless we go ahead and give direction now to our lawyer is what we want.
Okay, well,
You know, I'm not saying not to table this, but for us to have another meeting with the attorney and have to figure out what we want to do, I would be hopeful that we as a board tonight can go ahead and decide what it is we'd like to see done or not done, and so that we can give clear instruction to Mr. Palmer as to, I mean, make a call, make it the next day.
Yeah. Which I think they would be able to. Let's see, I'm not sure we have enough information to actually make a recommendation to him, except for him to talk to their attorney to try to work it out. I guess there's just some of his comments are good, but
If we leave it open-ended.
Yeah.
Mr. Palmer is probably going to assume that we want him to go forward with everything here, every objection that he has raised.
yeah, well, I think there's a couple, I would say under 4.6, we would tell him that shouldn't be, in my mind, that would be very, very equitable for us to be able to give them indemnification, because I know that would be something they wouldn't give up. Any other thing in here that, I'm not sure exactly what his comments are about us paying the 41,000 and us not having an agreed vision for the future goals and objectives. I think maybe,
Because that's what the whole project
that's
is
what the whole
supposed to
thing-
be
yeah.
doing, is creating vision
Yeah.
and goal. Yeah.
so I'd say under the agreement of the first one, I don't see how we have any way to determine that. And so to object to it would leave us in a position we could never agree to it. So in my estimation, I would take out the first objection he had and the 4.6 objection.
All right, then bring in, add 4.1 and Lynn's suggestion
Yes.
of changing B
Right.
to each.
Right.
So which one we got now? Tell me what's,
4.1,
I've got 4.1 each. I've got that one.
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, what on the next one?
It's Marion County, have it, that's subject to Marion County rather than Texas state law. Just have it Marion County,
Says-
state of Texas. As far as
Now, which
the,
item is that one?
6,
under 6.
paragraph 6.
And,
And Palmer's letter, it was,
yeah, paragraph 6, he says,
Yeah.
general provisions should be subject only to Marion County, which, you know, I think we could ask for that. We might not get it, but
yeah, it's a no-brainer.
yeah.
Okay.
But then under the comments of the quid pro quo is difficult, if not impossible. I agree with that. So there's no real meat in that.
Well, there's not really anything
Yeah.
we can, I mean,
Well-
at some point, it's gonna be a trust me deal
Yeah,
anyway.
right.
I mean, we're supposed to be giving them direction all along.
Yeah.
On what we get for the money.
Right.
So,
It was
you know,
all based on the other city, right? That,
Yeah,
Nobleville.
No.
everything was based
We're
on
looking-
what they've done in wherever that other city.
Nolanville.
Nolanville,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, everything's based on that, and then we look at it and say, okay, that's what we want. We want to grow like Nolanville, right?
Right.
So that's what I thought it was all about.
Yeah.
I was okay with it, but I do like the fact that he said each semester.
Yeah.
Right.
Each semester.
So if we can incorporate those, is there anything else, Lynn, that you see that we would need to have in here that are omit, that would be helpful to get this agreed to?
What,
Any,
let's go through simply with what you're claiming your recommendations are.
okay.
Paragraph 3, what are you doing about that? You okay with it or not?
I'm okay with it. I don't think there's any way we can get around it.
So your recommendation is that we leave paragraph 3 alone, we just do add the 4.1.
Right.
We're not going to pursue 4.6.
Yeah, I think we should pursue 4.6. See what happens. They may object to it totally and say, no, it's got to be just state of Texas. But I think in my position, we're putting up the money. They probably won't have much problem with that.
But 4.6 is understand it's an indemnification clause.
Yep.
But it's only indemnifies A&M if the sponsor uses some results that somehow or another comes back as a liability against A&M.
Yep.
So once they give us our results, that's just saying if the sponsor uses the results inappropriately and causes liability to A&M, then we would indemnify A&M.
Right. Which,
And personally, I don't see any problem with that.
I don't either.
You don't see any problem with 4.6?
I don't either. I think 4.6
I
is,
think he does see a problem with 4.6.
No, I don't see a problem
You
with
don't?
4.6 because it's going to be based on some negligence or something of the sponsor.
right.
Okay, on
That
that
we
side.
do.
Yeah.
And it's protecting A&M, and I think that they would probably want to dig in on holding that there.
I agree.
Protected.
Yeah, so I think 4.6 is definitely something. And then paragraph 6, changing it to Marion County, I don't think they'd have too much problem with that. On the last one, the quid pro quo, I don't think there's anything to benefit one way on that because there's no way we can change it. So if he would just give one phone call and include in that the 4.1 that Lynn had indicated and
About 6.1 or whatever it is?
in paragraph 6 on the Marion County. The others, I don't see that we have any leg to stand on in the first place.
No. So you're really, if you're assuming they're not going to make a change on the venue, you're really you're pushing back on one letter, one word.
Right.
The whole thing, okay.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
But I do think it'd be pertinent for him to call, for us to find out who the attorney is and to call and have one conversation. And then we should be able to get this passed without any problem.
Okay.
David, what do you think? You have any objection to that?
So our pending,
I like
our
that.
pending, I'm sorry.
No, I like what he was saying.
So our pending motion is to table this based on a recommendation that the president, that the chair be able to get with the attorney and express that we want, that we're okay with all of them but 4, 1, and 6? Is that right?
That's the way I see it.
4, 1, and 6, yeah. That's basically what it is.
Okay.
And
I'm just trying to understand
Yeah.
if that's,
Motion.
so we're kind of having a motion table with conditional.
With conditions.
Give us some authority to do something.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'll tell you what, I'm ready to put this baby to bed. I can
Yeah.
tell you, I've been working,
yeah,
we've
you
been
have.
working on this
Yeah.
thing, and this will be starting the 3rd month that
But I think
we
one
worked
phone
with
call
this,
will
you know.
solve this.
Yeah. and
One
get
way or
it-
another.
Get the baby put to bed.
Yep.
Okay. All right, you have a motion and a second on the floor today. And discussion's over, all in favor?
Here.
All right, 7-0. Y'all see how much fun this is? Everybody just wants to be on Jedco.
We're going to be there to see y'all in the future.
Yeah. All right, item 6C, we transferred the money in the regular account, but as y'all see that we have 186,000.
No, this is the USDA.
USDA fund, I'm sorry, 98,596. In a separate account that the USDA gave us a grant for, which
Yeah.
is revolving loan fund. Do I hear a motion to move it up to Vera? As you see, we don't get any interest on that because it has to be kept separate.
Let me give a clarification on that based on our discussion. I went by the bank, asked them about, because our understanding is this money has to be kept separate from, because we use it for loans and the USDA grant. So I went by Vera Bank and asked them if we can, what they had for a secondary account for that dollar amount. And they said we would just include, you would have a second account, but you would have the same interest rate as your big account. We would just show them as separate and name them separately. Matter of fact, today they were asking me what the name was the other day. And so basically all we do is we're moving it to Vera Bank to our account, but not in our account.
Yep.
Is the best way to put it.
Okay.
All right, now here a motion to move the money to Vera from First National. Nobody?
Yeah, I motion that.
All right.
I second.
Motion by Doug, second by Raymond. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, 7-0. All right, let's see. All right, well, what I was, I'm looking at on the audit is that, you know, we have not got any, we hadn't got the audit finished yet. We turned my phone off. We haven't got our audit for the last fiscal year yet. And, you know, I'm not necessarily wanting any action on this, but I was wanting to talk about it to make sure, you know, we might start looking at doing our own audits, having our own audit done instead of being included with the city. You know, their contract, when I was talking to Jordan Shaw, that he said that, you know, for up through the last September 21st, the last fiscal year, we're still under contract to be on their audit. So we'll have to go through it then, but, you know, I'd like for us to think about it because we're, you know, we're sitting there in a holding pattern on our own stuff, waiting on the city's audit. They haven't done theirs yet either. So anyway, there's nothing to be done on that for right now. So I was just wanting to put y'all in mind. So anyway, do I hear a motion to table this until the next meeting?
I so move.
Raymond moves. Do I hear a second? Second by Lynn. Any other discussion? All in favor? 7-0. All right, we're fixing to, Raymond, do we need to go into?
I don't think
There's really
so.
nothing here.
Not-
Mayor not here.
No, not tonight. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Our next meeting will be
14th?
on the 14th of June.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we'll, our next meeting will be the 14th of June at 5:30 here. Anybody have anything else? I hear a motion to adjourn.
Said motion.
David makes a motion, there, second.
I
Second by Raymond. Any discussion? All in favor? 7-0. We are now adjourned.